Hi, my name's Stephanie Stewart, and I would like to tell you about DUI Court. I did a 6-month internship from January to the end of May, so almost 6 months, roughly 6 months, at Cherokee County DUI and Drug Court, where I worked with some great people, and I learned a lot, so I'd like to tell you what I learned. Okay, to start out, did you know that about 1/3 of all drivers arrested or convicted of drunk driving are repeat offenders, according to Mothers Against Drunk Driving? That's a lot. Because of these repeat offenders, now we have DUI court, which is for repeat offenders. In order to get into DUI court, you can't just offend once. You have to offend multiple times, which is really bad and makes you think about how many people are on the road right now that are drinking and driving. So, DUI court, it puts a lot of limitations on your freedom, which is one of the biggest implications, but it keeps you out of jail. Hopefully, we'll get to that. So, you're part of the court system, which is definitely not a place you want to be unless you're helping others. You're under probation. Nobody wants to be under probation. You have to pay for it, which we'll get to. And you also have to go and check in, and you have to do community service work, which we'll also get to that. There's also home searches. In Cherokee County, there was a DUI court officer who was law enforcement with the sheriff's department, and he would come in, meet with the judge and the court staff, and then he would go and he would do home searches on each of the participants. They didn't tell you when they were coming. They were surprise home visits. And during these home visits, which is another limitation, there can't be any medication or drugs in the home. So, which also puts limitations on what an offender or a participant could take while they're in the program, because there's also drug testing, which is another limitation that you have to deal with. So any kind of medication you have to deal with. So any kind of medication or drug or alcohol is all part of the home search that they're looking for. Anything illegal or against the program rules, which there's a handbook at the end that you can look through to see what is and is not allowed. The biggest limitation that I would say is jail. Nobody likes going to jail. Never been there, don't want to. You can go to jail for many reasons in DUI court. One, because you got arrested for drinking and driving. Also, the biggest thing is sanctions. Sanctions are when you get a negative test, which is part of drug testing, which, like I said, we'll get to that. You miss a test, you show up late and you can't test, or you're late to court. There's tons of things that you can get sanctioned for. 9 times out of 10, you go to jail. If you're lucky, you get stuck writing an essay and doing extra community service work. Also, most people like to drive. They have jobs and school and children. You lose your license if you go to DUI court. Most of the people in DUI court did not have a license, or they lost it for a short period of time, and then they were able to get it back. Or they had permits, which had limitations on them. DUI court takes a lot of commitment. There are multiple people that are committed to DUI court. There's the judge, the defense attorney, the prosecutor, who's not on your side, the court team, which are the girls that actually run the DUI court program. There's probation, who you check in with constantly. There's counseling, and then there's the participants of DUI court, which they require the most commitment if they want to succeed. Okay, require the most commitment if they want to succeed. Okay, drug testing, another part of commitment. Drug testing is done usually early in the morning. It's frequent, it's random. You never know when you're going to test. You have to call first thing in the morning or late at night to find out. And then you have to show up early enough to test and hope that you can provide a sample. And when I say provide a sample, I mean if you can't use the restroom when you go to test, then you're in trouble. And that's considered a missed test, and you fail for it, you get a sanction. Or there's a dilute, which means you probably drank too much water before you went. And that's also considered a missed or negative test, and you fail, which leads to a sanction, which leads to more jail time. So it's pretty much a losing battle. Takes a lot of commitment, and you have to be very devoted and show up on time and devote yourself to the program. Okay, probation. Like I said, you have to check in with probation constantly. You have to pay for it. It's part of those costs we mentioned. They check in with the court team. There's community service, which is also part of probation. And the judge hands out community service whenever he feels like somebody's not behaving. The court team, which I mentioned, they meet twice a month with everyone, the probation officer, the district attorney, everyone I just mentioned that's part of the team, all sit down in a room and they talk about each and every participant. And then they go to court where they meet with all of the participants and they call them out one by one, check in with their progress, and see what they need to do to improve, where they're sliding, what they're doing great on, and they compliment them, and where they're sliding, what they're doing great on, and they compliment them and give them encouragement, which is the part of the support. Support also comes from the treatment part of the program. Because it is a drug court, it's also a treatment court. You have to go to counseling, and they used a local counseling group. It was required that they go to counseling a certain amount of times per week depending on what phase they were in. There's 5 phases to the program. The first phase is definitely the hardest, and it gets easier as you go along. They also require 12-step programs or any kind of AA or anonymous program to go to, which is a great source of support. But it's also, like I said, takes a lot of commitment because you have to find the time to go, and a lot of people have jobs and families and children, so it's a grueling process. Family, friends, sponsors, they're all very important to help people process the program and pass and graduate, which is important, but graduating means absorbing everything rather than just flying through it and checking the boxes as you go along. So it's a very expensive program. It's not for, I shouldn't say it's not for people that can't afford it, because it's for everyone. It just takes more time if you can't afford it, because you have to make payments and you have to be caught up on your payments in order to graduate and get on with your life. You have to pay the DUI court team. They have a weekly fee. Testing is included in the DUI court program, but once you get out of testing and you're still paying for probation, which is not included in the weekly fee, that's a separate fee, you have to pay for testing on top of probation. So that seemed to be a problem for people because people had trouble graduating when they couldn't afford it. And then there's work flexibility. You have to be able to take the time to take off work, go to court, go to probation, meet with your treatment team. It's a very difficult process for people to go through, and that's one of the struggles that they have. But that's all I have for today. The DUI court program is very successful, but very hard at the same time. So if you would like to check out the handbook at the end of this slide, it would show you a little bit more about that progress.